Shea gets it, spins away, baseline shot. Shea puts it in and walks it.
Basketball, like any other sport, has cycles. Some historical top-tier basketball powers such as Serbia, Spain, or France managed to form golden generations that compete in FIBA competitions for decades. However, as these generations age, they can leave nations with years of disappointment on the international stage. The only nation in the world that's able to survive this process is the United States. One of those rare cases where one country is able to completely dominate the global landscape of one of the most watched sports in the world. But something's changed. Not because the United States is worse, which it's not, nor because the rest of the world's countries are producing players of ever-increasing quality. Something has changed because of its neighboring country, Canada, with which it shares more and more culture every day, is being able to export players of enormous talent year after year. But this has not always been the situation in Maple Leaf Country. In fact, its best finish in a World Cup over the past 20 years is 7th place. But there was a time when the Canadian team was very strong in basketball, and it's the closest this nation has come to being able to call an era its golden era. During the 1970s and part of the 1980s, Canada was able to achieve 2 4th-place finishes in the Olympics on the verge of a medal, and 3 medals with its participation in the first editions of the FIBA AmeriCup. Since then, most fans of the Canadian country began to lose interest in basketball. Hardly what you would expect for a game invented by a Canadian. The first step for change was the creation of a new NBA franchise in Canada in 1995. The Toronto Raptors became, along with the Vancouver Grizzlies, the first teams outside the US to join the best basketball league in the world. But like all franchises that go through the expansion draft process, in the first few years of competition, their teams lacked top talent. B.J. Armstrong was selected with the first pick of the expansion draft by the Toronto Raptors, but the player refused to go to Canada to play. And until the arrival of Vince Carter in the 1998 draft, the Raptors lacked the true talent and excitement needed to get the fans' attention. However, Carter's arrival changed the landscape completely. One of the most spectacular players to ever step foot in the NBA put a signature on Canadian basketball forever. The shooting guard, in addition to being a walking highlight reel, was one of the best players at his position in the entire NBA, in an era contemporaneous to stars like Kobe Bryant or Allen Iverson. And his performance was transformed into actual sporting success, helping the Raptors reach the playoffs in 3 consecutive seasons. And that, at last, caught the attention of all the young people in Canada who saw basketball as a viable outlet. And despite not being Canadian, he quickly became an icon for an entire generation, a process that, now in 2023, is beginning to bear fruit. However, Carter's not been the only major influence on Canadian basketball. The greatest Canadian player in history is undoubtedly Steve Nash. The point guard, who was actually born in South Africa, grew up in Canada from the age of 2. Nash played his high school years at St. Michael's University School near Vancouver, and his legacy in the NBA, though often questioned by many American fans, cannot be faulted. Steve became a 2-time MVP, leading the league in assists on as many as 5 occasions and becoming one of the best 3-point shooters in league history.
6-point game. Sun's still alive. And 1.
But the truth is that the legendary point guard never ended up getting too involved with the national team, playing only one FIBA tournament with them. That was the 2000 Olympic Games, where Canada failed to advance past the quarterfinals of the competition and finished in 7th place. And even with the arrival and influence of Vince and Nash on the professional stage, Canada has not seen success on the world stage. Since 2006, Canada's qualified for 2 World Cups out of a possible 4, achieving a 21st and 22nd place finish. But as we said at the beginning of the video, something's begun to change. From 1947 to 2013, there were a total of 17 players born in Canada who were drafted in the NBA. This means about 1 every 4 seasons. However, in the last 10 years, as many as 35 Canadian players have been drafted in the NBA. In other words, 3.5 players in every draft over the last decade, on average, are Canadian. No country in the world other than the United States is inserting that amount of talent per season to the most competitive league in the world. And that logically leads to the fact that some of them are likely to end up being top-level players. No less than the top 10 all-time leading scorers and points per game born in Canada are active right now in the NBA. And the 11th is none other than Rick Fox, who never stopped being a role player during his career in the best league in the world. But what's more shocking, of the 52 Canadian-born players who have been drafted in the history of the league, 27 are currently active in the NBA. Today, Canada finally has its golden generation, a group of players with talent at all positions who have finally managed to come together this year to compete in a FIBA competition. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been All-NBA First Team this season with averages of 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, and being recognized as probably the best shooting guard in the NBA.
Ball's inbounded to Shai. Temple did not foul, and Shai on the step back.
Jamal Murray, on the other hand, has just had a tremendous performance in the playoffs, in which he managed to help lead the Denver Nuggets to the first championship ring in their history, along with Serbian Nikola Jokic, a player who was dropped at the last minute due to injury from the World Cup squad, but who will be one of the country's stalwarts for the next decade. But beyond the team's two biggest stars, Canada has a host of players who are NBA starters. And watch out, because this roughly means that we're talking about players who would be a top 150 player worldwide. Luguentz Dort, Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Olynyk, RJ Barrett, and Dylan Brooks are some examples. But Canada also has young players who are showing signs of having high potential in the league, such as Benedict Mathurin, who just finished his rookie campaign with the Indiana Pacers, showing a great scoring instinct.
Great find.
Or Shadon Sharpe, who many fans consider to be the best young piece of the Portland Trailblazers. The national team started its World Cup performance in style, scoring a 30-point win over contender France on the opening day. And the truth is that this group of players may very well be the best defense of the entire tournament, which, coupled with their tremendous athletic abilities, is allowing them to destroy all teams in transition. Jordi Fernandez, the coach in charge of the team, is doing a great job in the defensive aspect to establish a system that only the United States is capable of punishing, perhaps. For these reasons, everyone expects Canada to get a medal in this World Cup. In fact, it's come to a point where failure to do so would be a huge disappointment to the Canadian fans. Expectations are high, given the huge reputation of a roster that some even consider capable of defeating the young United States team. But what's really important is that the outcome of this World Cup is not so fundamental to the country's sporting success. This is only the first FIBA tournament in which the Maple Leaf will have a group of top players. What's really important is that Canada is laying the groundwork to become a world-class basketball superpower that's offering increasingly competitive training conditions for players, and whose success should increase tournament after tournament. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves is, should Team USA be afraid of this?